just like with Pepsi or Coca-Cola or Nike, with Lululemon, it's now a topic of conversation.
Mm.
And for all of these companies doing this, it's not necessarily that they're like, hey, let's go do this. It's because we're in the age of transparency with social media, where consumers are pushing these brands to make these changes, on top of like it just needing to be a thing. So I just like my goals are to change or at least accelerate the change in Lululemon. And while I'm kind of like waiting for an opportunity there to arise, I just wanted to study more. And I found a course at NYU through their business school, Stern, in corporate sustainability. And I was looking at doing it last year. It just didn't feel realistic. I was about to move into my first winter in New York, and I just like kind of put it on pause. I didn't mention before I moved to New York and then was living in California for 18 months. So I moved back to New York last year. Yeah, I had to do it. So yeah, I started in January, and I didn't obviously know that a lockdown was going to happen. And I was like, far out, this is going to be tough to do my full-time job and this course. And then lockdown happened. So I was given this abundance of time to really dive into this course. It's a 3-month online course under Tensi Will, and she's I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing her name correctly, but she's the head of NYU Stern. And I think your last episode or the one before, you had
Jungwon from the Rainforest Alliance.
I listened to that podcast earlier today. It was fantastic. She's super intelligent.
So incredible.
It was brilliant. I was blowing my mind. But Tensi was the head of the Rainforest Alliance. I think she was the CEO for many years. So she's like just incredible. We're learning from her. Just essentially had readings each week, lessons, and then you kind of like would build your skills week on week and then put together a case study for sustainability for a chosen organization. So I obviously chose Lululemon and built a case for them to kind of push forward. And a lot of it was stuff I already knew. A lot of it was new stuff. But it really just enabled me to kind of mesh all the things we've talked about so far on this podcast together into like one thing and get a real good understanding of what the future holds, essentially. And I loved it. It was amazing.
So now what's your plan? What's the future hold for you?
I am practicing patience at the moment because I'm really excited. Lululemon's finally made some substantial commitments towards sustainability. We are... A lot of it's kind of not on the back burner. It's just not the focal point right now. As with many, many corporations right now, the focus is on anti-racism work, as it should be. Diversity and inclusion is important. It's not the be-all and end-all, but we're really taking a deep dive into that right now. So
it's great.
And it's awesome. I'm all for it. It's what needs to happen. But there's some really cool sustainability initiatives in the works for Lululemon. And I'm excited for that to kind of roll out. And I think as that stuff does, there'll be more opportunities to step into like roles outside of the retail space and in the sustainability team. There is a sustainability team. So I'm kind of just patiently working in the store. We just reopened after lockdown and I've kind of got my hands full there. But I think towards the end of this year, I'll be knocking on that door very loudly to try and get myself a role in the team and try and push things along a little bit faster than they're currently happening.
So we didn't really discuss, like, what do you think of the New York surf scene coming from northern beaches and having to surf Rockaway?
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. I froth on it.
Some of the friendliest people in the water too, huh?
Yeah.
Well, they're dropping in.
I don't know if you're being sarcastic or not.
No, I'm saying like they're like the nicest people. They drop in on you, but they're the nicest people. You're like, it's hard to get upset sometimes. I mean, well, some people get upset very easy, but
I don't know. I grew up in the northern beaches. It's pretty hectic there with crowds.
Yeah. And you have a lot more good surfers too.
You do. Yeah. I grew up, so I'll take a few steps back. I grew up in Manly. I probably learned to swim at around the age of 4 and went into the whole surf life saving thing. So it's like the equivalent of the junior lifeguards here, where essentially every like beach has a surf club, and you'd meet there as a kid on Sundays. It's called Nippers, and you're in your little age groups, and you do beach sprints, and you swim around some buoys. You say buoys, don't you? We call them boys in Australia.
You go either way. Tomato, tomato, whatever.
Potato. So anyway, did that, and like you'd learned about ocean safety and board racing, and I'd also from about the age of 10 learned to like stand up surf on a board, but
nice.
Thought it was cool, but just like never really got into it. But when I was probably a teenager, started surfing shortboards, and shortboards are kind of shit, like high performance shortboards, unless the waves are good, or if you're a really good surfer. But I always say like, learning to surf on a shortboard, especially if the waves aren't good, it's like learning how to drive a Ferrari, like learning how to drive a car in a Ferrari. It's just not logical. And so I spent most of my teenage years just frustrated with surfing. Like I loved it, and it's all I would really do, but at the same time just struggled a little bit. And so I ended up surfing usually on foam boards, because you can surf in the flagged area where the waves are usually really good and there's no one there.
Yeah.
And yeah, just it wasn't until I competed at a pretty high level with surf life saving up until about 21. So once after you're a kid, once you get to like age 8, through the summer season, you have carnivals or festivals. So everyone will kind of like go to one beach, and you have all these competitions. And
were you doing a dory challenge? Were you doing the dory boats or what?
Oh, like the big wooden paddle boat things? No, my balls aren't that big. Yeah. I've been on them twice. I gave it a crack when I was probably 15 or 16.
Terrifying.
And I was just like, no. Like, even when the waves are small, they're like, I'll tell you what, if you want to build a physique, get on one of those things.
Yeah, serious. If you're that and you want to get bruised up.
Yeah. But definitely kind of that's where I learned how to drink beer in that whole environment growing up with all those boys. And definitely the boat rowing guys probably drank the hardest, but I loved that and got really, really into all of that. And I wasn't a great swimmer, but my forte is board paddling. So the boards are like really narrow, probably like 9 foot long, and they're designed for racing. Yeah, so either on your knees or lying down, and that and the ski paddlings. I really got into all of that, and I was playing a lot of sport at school. I was super fit. And surfing a little bit, but honestly, I enjoyed free surfing on the paddle boards the most. So you were training every day. You'd go down to the beach after school, and you'd have an hour training, but I'd get down there early and free surf on the board before and after. And it's just a single fin, and you're like, you can get on any wave. So even if it's like ankle high, and it's just so fun. And I'd learn how to do like 180s or 360s and spin and stuff on my knees, and got into all that. And it wasn't until I was maybe like early 20s, I got a bit over the competitive side of things. Mm-hmm. You do state titles and national titles and stuff. And
then you're like, what am I doing this for? All I got is this plastic trophy.
Yeah, this plastic pollution trophy. But it was also a bit like just the egos and stuff. Yeah. I was kind of just a bit over it. And I was surfing shortboards, but I bought it was a 5'4" Chili. Do you know? I don't know if you know Chili.
Yeah.
It was a little like skateboard 5'4"
James
quad.
Cheel. Yeah.
Yeah. And I bought it off a guy. He was like one of the best athletes, but he was a few years older than me in high school. Bought it off him for, I think, $200, I think. It was an old board. And it opened my eyes to surfing. So it was 5'4". I was used to surfing like a 6'2" or something, narrow thruster. And all of a sudden I was on this skateboard.
Yeah.
And I just started having so much fun. And then I got my hands on Chisholm South Coast surfboards twin fin. Nice. But it was actually a kneeboard template.
Oh, even better.
Big, like bulbousy nose, and it was this like psychedelic blueprint with two fat timber keel fins. And then, that just opened me up to a whole nother world of surfing, and I never really went back to high performance thrusters ever again.
And then you showed up in Rockaway, and your board is the norm now. Everyone.
Yeah, it's been really cool to see that full circle back to just different styles. For those, I don't know, listeners that aren't super into surfboards, and I'm sure there's a lot that are. Yeah. I just feel like thrusters are kind of like they hit a bit of a brick wall in terms of like design. Like there's not really much more you can do with thruster boards, like the level of performance you're increasing it by has got to be so minute at this level.
It's fine tuning, you know.
It is fine tuning, and I love that. It's really cool.
It's like how I describe it is like, you know, Formula One racing, right? Like those cars, like they get better, but it's not like
it's not by much.
It's not the leaps and jumps from like the 70s to 80s, you know. It's like it's refinement. You know, that's what it is. Yeah.
And then, but I did go back to shortboard. I some more dumb Aussie luck. I won another raffle to get a custom design board.
Have you played the lotto yet?
No, I should hit the stock market.
Yeah.
But have you heard of Misfit Shapes?
Oh yeah. No, I met the shaper when he came through. Did a tour years ago. Yeah, sick stuff. Really nice.
So I was looking up to. I still do. He's just an incredible human. Otis Carey. He's former Indigenous surfing champion. He rides for Billabong. He's one of my favorite surfers. He's an incredible artist. And just speaking of racism, and he's an Aboriginal man. He's just really outspoken in Australia and that whole scene. But he had this board called the Dingo Bandito, which was this really kind of like wide, flat board with a moon crescent tail and a quad setup. Nice. And I would watch his clip of him surfing it every day before I went surfing. And so I got to order one of those. And it just was thicker and wider and shorter than what I'd used to. And it, again, like kind of got me back into like shortboards. And I actually still have that board. And yeah, that was the next board, I think. And then I've always had boards in the garage with like, I think our garage back at home, we've got like 20 boards. So always kind of swapping and changing between boards. But there's the Byron Bay Surf Film Festival.
Yeah.
And we'd go up there with Take 3, and it was like the highlight of my year. I'd go in the big Mercedes Sprinter van with Tim, and we'd do a bit of a road trip up the East Coast. And we were staying at a friend's house, and Tim introduced me to this shaper called Brian Bates. And he kind of, the Misfit are hand shapers as well. So that kind of opened my eyes to hand shaping versus computer shaped boards. And Brian does everything from scratch. So he hand shapes the board, he does the glassing, he makes his own fins. And obviously like a lot of hand shapers don't even do their own glassing. So it was really cool to see this like purism. And Brian was making these semi-finless boards called drifters.
Oh yeah.
And essentially Brian was shaping for Derek Hine for a couple of years. Some
that's where I know the name from. Yeah.
Yeah. And he Derek talking about purism is just like a complete purist with the whole finless pursuit, and I loved it. But Brian wanted to make it more accessible to people, so he was inserting these little tiny finlets on top of the boards, like a quad setup with really deep channels, just like the hind shapes. And him and Derek kind of went separate ways because Derek didn't want to use the finlet stuff. So he
doesn't want people to like catch on easily. He wants it to be his own thing in some ways, I think,
which is kind of beautiful and rare, I guess.
It's sweet.
And I've actually been lucky enough to have a really incredible session at the Path in Byron Bay where Derek was surfing, and one time I got a really good wave by my standards, and kind of got like a nod of approval by Derek as he paddled past me. Derek's in his 60s and was out paddling me in my fittest,
Oh yeah,
he's crazy.
Oh, he stayed with me a few times, and I've taken him out here in Long Island, and it's always like he's always blowing people's minds. It's so fucking cool because they see this old guy and they're like, "What the fuck is this guy?" Yeah. And then next thing you know, they're like, "Holy shit, that guy went the fastest I've ever seen someone go on a wave!" Like shit like that, just blowing people's minds.
That's incredible. Another Northern Beaches product of the Northern Beaches.
Narrabeen, man.
Yeah. So I met Brian, and then at the end of the festival they have like the surfing expo where they have like they're heats, but they're not judged or anything. It's just more like fun stokage. And they had the experimental heat. And Brian, I was like, Brian, can I test one of your boards? He's like, yeah, go for it. And I was surfing it and stuff. And then he's like, why don't you go in this heat? And it was kind of like this finless heat, I guess.
Nice.
Like people writing pipe